Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Business Blondes. We're delighted to have you all with us. And we're also joined today by our very special guest, Pelin Martin, who it will be my pleasure to properly introduce shortly. But before we start on that, we thought we would just do as we normally do and share a little bit about how our week's going. And obviously for a lot of us, it's half term this week and the added joys of juggling family life and business. So Sam, I know that is one of your challenges this week. How's it going?
Absolutely. It's always a joy, isn't it? Juggling half term and business. Always a joy, she says, as she's smiling through those gritted teeth. I think for me, it's just been a lockdown, because this was obviously our lives throughout lockdown. Well, this was my life anyway, working from home and having two boys at home with me. So it's just been a very, very big reminder of that this week. And also to remind myself, just one hat at a time. You can't juggle more than one hat at a time. So just chill and just focus on one thing at a time.
I love it. Great tip. We can often get ourselves muddled, can't we, trying to wear too many of them at the same time and end up wearing none of them well.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Caroline, how about you, my lovely?
I've had a good week, thank you. I would say what's come through for me this week, because I have a coaching club called the CC Club, was perfectionism is very much a thing, at the moment. And, hands up, who's the perfectionist in the room? A lot of people are. But, progress beats perfectionism. So I set a challenge to all of my CC Club members to do a 1-minute film for Facebook or for Insta or whatever to promote their businesses. And the message was, why do you do what you do in 1 minute? And actually, when you talk from the heart, it doesn't really matter if your hair is just so, or you set the background up just right. And I think passion beats perfectionism and progress beats perfectionism. So stop fussing with your hair, making sure you've got the right backdrop. Get out there, do your little mini broadcast. It's better than just hoping for the day when everything's just going to be just so, because that day never comes. So that's my tip of the week. Progress beats perfectionism, but passion beats everything, of course.
I love it. And you're so true. Passion does beat everything, doesn't it? And we can get so caught up in waiting for the perfect time, for the perfect moment, for the perfect, well, there is no perfect. They say, well, no, anyway, just get passionate and get out there. Penny, my lovely, how about you?
Well, I suppose it's building on a little bit from what Sam was saying about, sort of focus on one thing. I've had a lot of my clients, I've taken on quite a few clients recently who we've been helping with their brand and things and niching. And what I'm seeing is, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of momentum building. There's a lot of people connecting, a lot of people asking for collaboration. There's a lot of people saying, will you do a podcast? There's a lot of communication going on, and I think a lot of people are trying to do too many things. And I think your analogy, what you said, Sam, about careful of what hat you're wearing. I'm hearing a lot about overwhelm because people are just trying to grab every opportunity they can, because there's a slight fear of I need to be known, I need to get out there, I need to take every opportunity. But actually, you've got to keep remembering what is your business about, and is this actually going to serve your business? So I think that's the message that I've been getting this week. There's a lot of frantic behavior going on. I'm looking at myself as well here. Where a lot of us are people pleasers as well, aren't we? And you're trying to do so many things for so many people, and if you're well connected, a lot of stuff comes in. I think it's about creating that filter on really want to help everyone, but how's that going to help my business as well?
No, I love it, and it's so true. I think because we are all social animals and we need that social connection, the elongated periods of not being connected has left people feeling perhaps a little bit more lost, a little bit more lacking in certainty of where to go, and therefore any opportunity becomes a good opportunity. But you're so right, sometimes it's working out actually how is that going to serve you, and how's that going to serve your business and your clients, and bringing it back to your why, isn't it? Does this align to my why, and is it going to therefore create confusion if I do too much, which can be a challenge, can't it, in the current climate? And Pelin, sorry to put you on the spot before we do a proper intro, but how about you? What's been coming through for you this week?
In terms of, I would say everything has been quite balanced, actually, in terms of business and personal life on the whole. And kids being on half term at the moment. And I think everybody's like sort of a little bit taking time off. So it's a bit more balanced because of that. Yeah, it's been good. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. And balance is such an important one, isn't it? We can often get ourselves so hung up in everything that needs to get done that we forget that actually we perform best when we are in balance and when we take that little bit of time for ourselves. So I guess for me, my tip this week has been to just take some of that time and not feel guilty about it. And this morning was probably my best example. We normally rush out of the house in a mad, frantic hurry. And it was my little girl's Halloween party at nursery, and she really wanted a face painting. I'm the world's worst face painter, I've established from this morning's efforts, but actually she thought she looked absolutely amazing. I'm just glad that it was Halloween and therefore it didn't matter how horrendous it was. Probably that was deemed to be best. So it possibly played to my favor. But I do think my kind of top tip is take the time, give yourself some time for you on the things that bring you joy, because you will be so much more productive when your time in your business. But anyway, after we've done the tips, let's move on to introducing you properly. So Pelin has run the West London Property Network for many years. You founded Blue Crystal Property Management. You come from property development and investor background, but you've had a variety of a career. You also moved into international headhunting, but realized that property is really where your passion lies. And whilst you are a tough negotiator, you are renowned for your traditional trademark warm approach, which is what really brings around the true professional and giving of your time, your energy and your knowledge, which you're doing today by being here with us, which we really appreciate. So based on everything that's going on right now in the property market, what are you seeing for where it is currently and for its future?
The changes in the market are, especially since the stamp duty holiday has been put in place because of COVID-19, which is ending March next year. There is literally, the market is almost becoming saturated with lack of property. Everybody's buying at the moment. And I think they are bringing in more, it's not confirmed, but options to actually buy with like 5% down as a deposit, mortgages, etc., which the banks are negotiating with the government at the moment. So there is a lot happening. And I hear that I was speaking to a solicitor yesterday, and she was saying everything is going over the asking price. And people are finding it actually, even if they had the budget to buy a certain property, by the time they make an offer, because now it's gone over the asking, that they can't actually afford it anymore. It doesn't match their criteria. So it is very, very busy, especially I hear in the seaside towns.
Yeah, we have seen a few people, I think possibly because of lockdown, it gets people, I'm guessing, thinking about the environment within which they currently live and saying, if I got locked in again, is this where I want to be? Do you see some of that coming through?
I think that's what's really happened. So everybody's like, I can't go to, all these lovely countries, Greece, etc., anymore for the time being. And they've discovered the seaside towns of the UK. So they are investing their money now, even if it is going to be another year or two, they may just be making the most of it. That's one reason. Secondly, I've noticed that loads of people who are in a property without outside space, they are desperate to move into some place with outside space. We have found tenants are leaving London because they can work from home and they can be in Wales paying 1/3 of the rent. So it's been a lot of shift, actually. I mean, I am surrounded by a few people who are leaving London, moving into countryside, because I think what happened is, as the businesses are shutting down or they had to find new premises, the changes are already happening, and these changes are put upon them. They haven't chosen it. So it made them look at their life again, and it's like, how can I recreate this? I don't have to be in London anymore. I don't have to be in this town anymore. I can be anywhere, and because I need to recreate the whole thing anyway.
Can I ask a question? When this this tax holiday, property tax holiday comes in March, do you think it's going to change drastically? Like people suddenly stop wanting then? Will the rush end? Do we have to be more patient and maybe give it 9 months or a year, really?
I think the rush will end quite a bit. We will see a drastic drop in purchases. Because I think there are a lot of first-time buyers at the moment who's making the most of that because they didn't have the stamp duty funds available, etc. And I think if we don't have the vaccine and we are still possibly going into third lockdown, or the situation is still keeping going in March, they may extend it to August, October. I think that's a possibility. They want to keep the market moving a little bit. But I really feel like we talked about balance. There will be a time it's going to have to start balancing again. So I really feel like there will be a little bit of a drop afterwards once this is all over. So I don't think they can keep it going. This is actually not naturally created situation. So
So can I ask you who's benefiting the most in this property climate?
I think it is. I think there are a few parties benefiting. Definitely, first-time buyers are benefiting. Government actually wants to put in 5% deposit down scheme themselves, and the banks are, I think, saying let's not do that. That's what I've been hearing and reading. So that is really that's very good for individuals who have the income to prove, but they don't have the funds saved. So this is like really good for them because they didn't have if you look back, in all honesty, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, you had to have 25% deposit down. They didn't even allow 10, 15% deposits down because of the last crash. They really wanted really high deposits, like 25%, and it was quite high. So this is like quite comfortable for them. And I mean, stamp duty, as far as I know, stamp duty doesn't apply to second home buyers. It's only for the first. It has to be your main home, basically. So, and it has to be under 500K, so certain levels. So it is anyone who's within that boundary, they are benefiting.
And are property investors really making the most of this period? Or because it sounded like what you were saying, it sounds like it's more of a seller's market, is it?
It is more of a seller's market, yeah. It really is. Property developers, they may be making most of it if they have properties to sell.
Yeah,
so
but not to buy.
But not to buy. So it's not going to benefit them a great deal in that sense. But I mean, it is always benefiting property developers when the market is moving as this. If they were holding on to a property they couldn't sell before, they can get the most money for it. So definitely seller's market for sure. Yeah. But I feel like we have been waiting for it for a while.
So how long, Pelin, do you think it is that we are going to enjoy this seller's market?
I think until the COVID-19 situation settles, because obviously government is really concerned about where the economy is going. They want to keep it moving and people spending money and buying and just banks lending, and they want to keep this, I call it excitement, financial excitement. Yeah, it is really exciting at the moment. People are just literally, I am going through a mortgage application myself for a property that I have as an investment. And I've just got an email from my mortgage broker yesterday. He's saying, well, you know what, there's so many surveys like waiting to be carried out. We don't know when they will be able to carry out your survey. So, you know, it's been a while. It's been like quite a while now, actually, that we have actually booked it in. So it's backlog. Solicitors are very busy. Surveyors are very busy. Mortgage, if you speak with mortgage brokers, they are literally, they don't actually care if you put it in with them or not, to the point that they're actually really busy. So it's in a way, it's very good because it's been the market was very stale for the last few years because of Brexit. So in a way, at least these people who are related and connected to property, they are generating money, income for the people they are connected to. So it's actually, you know, as much as we had the issues with tourism and hospitality market with COVID-19, at least some parts of the market is actually pumping the economy.
Well, that's got to be good news, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, it is quite amazing. I find it hard to believe in such a situation we are in that mortgage brokers actually don't even care if you put in the mortgage with them or not, because they're busy anyway. So, I mean, you know, you wouldn't expect that to be the case at the moment, to be honest.
That's a massive shift, isn't it? Because, you know, normally, having worked in financial services for a lot of years, normally that is definitely not the case. It is almost a desperation of how do you encourage the customer to come to you versus your competitor. So interesting that there's such a dynamic shift on that, which you've got to hope is a positive sign for the economy.
I really
and its
hope
recovery.
that they're going to somehow sort of maintain it. It will just like maintain at a healthy level rather than just going straight down. And
are lenders starting to get cautious with giving out mortgages yet? Worried about people furloughed and businesses struggling?
Well, they are asking the question, as they have to for FCA regulations, I believe. Are you concerned about COVID-19? Are you affected by COVID-19? Are you expecting to be affected by COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera? I think this is like something that you have to go yes and no. They're carrying out their due diligence, but also I have heard from a few people actually their property has been undervalued. So actually, I think when they go to a property, they are looking at it, and I think they are really cautious because they're aware this is all unnaturally created, the situation, and prices are rising rapidly, and they are like being very cautious, lending at the full price. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting you say prices are rising, because we've been watching in our area where we live, and they don't seem to be. So it is like you were saying about certain areas of the country that are rising, where people are wanting to go and live. And
maybe it is the certain areas of the country. I mean, definitely is happening in the seaside towns. I know people who said they can't find one on the market because they're all sold. So that is the case. And I suppose maybe some parts of London, but I think quite a bit in London is quite buoyant.
Really?
It's surprising because everyone's saying that London's gone really quiet now, and we don't have the international buyers that we used to have. I mean, around Mayfair, Chelsea, South Kensington, those are mostly international areas, and we don't have the visitors and the tourists and the potential overseas buyers now. Yet you're saying London's still pretty buoyant.
It is. Maybe when something like this happens, sometimes it doesn't affect the certain. It's buoyant below a certain level. So it may not be that properties over £2-3 million are actually the ones having selling really fast. It could be the 500Ks or 600Ks. You know, that it may be the reason. And also, I mean, it still hasn't changed the fact that, for example, Chinese investors, they especially buy a property, Asian investors, they specifically buy a property in London, in the UK, so they can actually have the immigration status to be able to move here full time. So I know that this is still also happening at the moment.
It is still happening. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Pelin, I was in the mortgage industry when it all crashed in 2008. Obviously, back then it was very much a subprime world, and people could borrow 110% of the property value, sometimes 120% of the property value. Do you think we'll ever get back to that point where, you know, literally anybody could get a mortgage?
I don't think so. I think it was a lesson learned at the time. So I think it was, I think I was an estate agent just after the crash, and I know people, and I met vendors who couldn't sell because their property, they bought it for 250 with 110% mortgage, and then their property was worth 220 or 200, and it never reached the 250 level for like 5, 6, 7 years, and they could not sell for the life of them. I think there were a lot of people in that boat at the time. So I think it's a lesson learned. I don't think any government or the banks will put themselves into that position again, and then government had to bail out the banks at the time. So it is actually taking further responsibility. So I can't see that happening. Even 5% is quite, I think, risky, because like when we have a market drop, it drops 10-20%. So if you already have 5% deposit down, you're already in minus equity. So it's quite risky. It's quite risky. Yeah.
It's lovely listening to you, Pelin. I'd love to understand about your business. You run a network then, do you?
I do. I run West London Property Networking. Yes. It's on hold at the moment. For the last couple of weeks, but yeah.
Oh, and what sort of people come to your events?
People who are serious about property. People who are in property. So I bring property professionals together. Brilliant. They are either lawyers, contractors, they are architects, interior designers, and it could be someone who's just interested in getting into investments. And I find that, I mean, although I run it, I do find that I learn from it every single time, because we have 2 speakers every event, and they always cover a different area of the property market. It could be, once we had a lady who only bought entire block buildings, and then she would let them, and then she'd go and look for another block. And everybody's like, you learn something from every person, and they all have a different angle as to how they are in property.
Yeah, and do you get many sort of first-time property developers that are sort of taking a chance on something, coming to learn?
I think there are a lot of, we didn't have a lot of first-time learners, actually. They were, I would say 10-15% or 20%.
Must be, yeah.
Yeah, but it
very
was
powerful for them.
Yeah, it is actually. It is actually, because everybody kind of knows what they're doing in the meetings, because we already have property professionals attending. And it's quite interesting when you actually talk to an architect, they start telling you they actually have a few properties let themselves and they're already investing. A lot of people in property, they're already in it in many different areas. Yeah.
Very good. Sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
It must be a great way as well to share knowledge, because one of the, as you've just said, because one of the largest growth areas that we're seeing globally is the knowledge industry, and that ability to be able to share what we've learned with other people to enable them to accelerate where they want to go. Is that something that you see resonating across property as an industry as well?
Can you open up a little bit your question?
Yeah, so I guess, with everyone's got a different perspective or a different point of view or different experiences. And actually, when they're sharing that, it can encourage people to think in a different way, to collaborate more, to try new things, I guess, to enable them to
absolutely
where we are.
Absolutely. I mean, it does. As you are going into the meetings, you are actually starting to look property or that section of property in a very different way. To give you, I'm giving you myself as an example. Quite a few years back, I went to a 3-day seminar of Simon Zucchi, who is a mastermind. So I spent 3 days there in his, in his conference area with like 200 people. I met so many people in the room. And before I walked into, and I had been an estate agent for many years. So before I walked into this room, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm never going to invest out of London, and I'm never going to invest in HMOs and people sharing. It's a lot of hassle, etc. And I walked out 3 days later. I was like, I want to buy a HMO out of London. So it's quite it's quite interesting, actually. And I came out, I was like, oh my God, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. So I think that people going into West London property networking, they came out, and I've had a lot of people saying to me, it was a real eye-opener, you know.
I bet that's such an inspiring way, because actually sometimes you just need somebody else to get you to challenge your thinking, don't you, to enable you to try something you didn't think you were going to do before, which has been fascinating. We could literally chat to you all day, but I'm really conscious this half hour goes so fast, doesn't it? And we're kind of getting down to the last couple of minutes to be able to share our piece of advice or tip for the audience. So I wonder, with everything that you've learned, Pelin, is there anything that you would say to our audience watching if they're in property or if they're thinking about getting into property? Is there a tip you could give them of where to go to find more information?
Where to go to find more information? I would say actually speak with as many people as you can, because it's so diverse. So if you actually have access to a solicitor or an architect, etc., whatever your question is, ask as many questions as you can. I find that I do that all the time. I don't assume that I know fully anything. I always go and ask a bit more to whoever I can have access to. So that will be my advice.
That's fantastic advice, and resonates across any industry, doesn't it? Just keep asking, keep learning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Caroline, how about you, my lovely? Have you got a tip for our lovely viewers?
Yeah, I have. A lot of people struggling with content at the moment because we're having to put a lot of stuff out there. I would say keep it really simple. Don't overthink your content. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I forget it myself. I keep thinking I need to reinvent the wheel. You don't. Just keep your content simple and relatable so people can identify ways of using your services.
I love it. Brilliant advice, as always. And Penny, my lovely, how about you?
Well, I think I've sort of implied that I've had a little bit of an overwhelm over the last couple of weeks. TJ, as you know, he does all our well-being and talks to me a lot. He's taken me out into nature, and he's been teaching me the importance of nature. So I would say, I know Caroline's brilliant at this, go out as much as you can into nature every day. He was telling me that these things, phytoscenes, which actually is something that sort of an enzyme that the trees give off, even just breathing it in. But he had me kissing and stroking trees this morning. And so I haven't become a tree hugger, but I would say, make sure that at the moment, it's all this Zoom time, all this time on computers, get out into nature as often as you can.
I love it. Great advice. And Sam, my lovely, how about you?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to the hats. So especially, for this afternoon and tomorrow, and maybe next week, depending on where you are in the country, just have one hat at a time. Don't focus on one thing at a time. Don't try and be everything to everybody. I think it was Penny, you said earlier, I know us four are definitely people pleasers, and I know I need to learn to say no more often. So yeah, look after ourselves and make time for you as well.
I love it. Great advice. And I guess for me, it kind of resonates with an article I read from a friend of mine, which really hit home, which was, we worry about content, but have we considered contentment? So what is it we're doing every day that adds some joy into our lives and brings us contentment to enable us to refill that jug so that we've got more to be able to share, which I think probably kind of resonates across, Penny, what you were saying about giving back to nature and that as well, and Caroline, you about what we do with our content. So we're at the end. Before we say goodbye, if anybody would like to join us as a guest, please pop on over to www.businessblondes.tv, where you can submit your form to apply to come and join us. We would love to have you along. And in the interim, have an amazing week. Thanks again to all my lovely co-hosts and the fabulous Pelin Martin. I'm sure you all agree it's been fascinating. And we will see you next time. Take care.